Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of old versus new, looking at how bands have evolved over the course of their career. Today, we're going to be looking at an older track from Mastodon. This one is called Mother Puncher. It is from 2002, it looks like. And that is a wild album art. But I am actually a huge fan of that font. I like how it's a very simple font. Something that it's a lost art in modern metal. I'm kind of assuming this is metal. Having nice simple fonts. All right, let's get into this and see what's going on with Mastodon's Mother Puncher. Really groovy right off the start. Tons of energy. Yeah, little variations too on that line. What are we, like 30 seconds into the song and we've seen so much variation in a single idea already? Ooh. Ooh, massive shift. Into a 3/4 it feels like. With a tempo shift. All that drive and energy has been flattened down into this just being stuck in the mud, just real sludgy. Tempo and time are just all over the place. Really just utilizing whatever's going to help set the mood they're looking for in each section. It's interesting that much like Opeth's earlier stuff, this has a very strong 4 against 6 feel. The guitars are really pushing a 6 feel, but there is this slower 4 that fits in with the 3 tempo that we saw earlier. Really working on offbeat accentuations as well. Wait, it's over? Dang, we were just getting started. Huh. Okay. Okay. That was a bit abrupt. Yeah, so here's the interesting thing well, probably the most interesting thing I think as far as the music composition, the song composition, how the song is structured, is that the intro feels like the intro to a longer, more, maybe not necessarily proggier song, but they took the same intro idea and expanded upon and added ornamentation and created variation on it for about a minute, which is a quarter of the runtime. Now, that is that is an interesting move because it creates what I think, what my experience was here, in that the intro typically dictates the song. If you're going to have a 2 minute intro, you're probably not going to have a 3 minute song. You're only giving yourself a minute to write the core of the song, so to speak. Usually we see these longer intros in longer songs. It fits time wise. You're going to lengthen the song length, you can lengthen all the individual aspects as well. And to me, that makes the song feel short. By the time we actually get into the song proper, we hit that first verse, the vocals come in, and the energy of the song changes. We only have 2 minutes left of the track. And in those 2 minutes, they do a lot of movement, that's for sure. They enter into a lot of sections and try out different ideas. But my big takeaway here is that they utilized an extra long intro and it made the song feel short. And that's very interesting. I think that's what's going to stick with me the most is sort of this unorthodox song composition. Just really front loading the song and not leaving enough space for the real meat of it, which is just an interesting choice. Yeah, that's just, I don't know. When the song ended, I really was not expecting that. The song sounds like there could be another 2 minutes on it, and there's just not. I don't know if it goes into another song or well, actually, it kind of stopped abruptly. I mean, we had a finale, finality to the song. I don't know. That's just that's racking my brain right there. It's oh, that's interesting. So let's talk about some of the key aspects here that I see in their writing. Um, First of all, let's talk about some of the interesting things, the parallels they have with Opeth. When we checked out Forest of October on Monday, uh, I pointed out that they utilized either a lot of triplets in 4, or they did this, or they actually went into a strong 6/8 feel, and but had a pretty overbearing 4/4 feeling on top of that, which mostly works within the idea of a slower tempoed 4/4 working within 2 bar phrases. So you can get that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And those 4 emphasized beats, your 1, your 4, your 1, your 4, is going to create your 4/4. So you get these 2 bar phrases in 6/8, and it's going to feel like a 1 bar phrase in 4/4 at a slower tempo. And they really emphasized that. And the same thing is happening here. Now, this came out in 2002. Um, that Opeth track was mid to late 90s, I think, if I remember right. 96, I think. So they're not right next to each other as far as release time wise, the release timeline, but I don't know if it's just a coincidence we're checking that out, or if maybe Opeth had an inspiration on Mastodon. I know in the comments to that Opeth tracks, I saw a couple people mention that the 6/8 feel was kind of a thing for them, and so I don't know if that kind of carried over into bands that were inspired by Opeth. I kind of get the feeling that they were a rather large band. They inspired a lot of stuff that came after them, but it's just so weird in the same week that this band also incorporated the same idea where the guitars are playing in 6/8 or triplets in 4/4, but there's still this heavy 4/4 overtone to the entire section. Now, it wasn't the whole song like we saw in Forest of October, but it's just that parallel could not be stranger. It's certainly felt in that section. Granted, it was a short section, but almost every section in here was, other than the intro. They had a lot of work to put into such a small time. And honestly, I want to talk to these guys and ask them about what drove this song I know we moved off of this, but I can't get it out of my brain. What caused them to put such a lengthy intro into such a short song? It really rushes the rest of it. Um, I gotta put that away though. I gotta put that away. Let's move on. So yeah, that 6/8, the 6 against 4 feel was present. They actually moved around a lot of time signatures, assuming that 6/8 was 6/8 and it wasn't triplets in 4/4. We had 6/8, we had 4/4, we had 3/4, and then we had several tempos alongside those. We had the driving tempo at the beginning. We had that sludgy tempo that came in at the 3/4 section when the vocals first came in. We did some 4/4 stuff that kind of brought the tempo back up. And then, depending on whether that was 6/8 or 4/4 there, closer to the end, that was a different tempo on either one of those. One being a little slower, the other one being a little faster than what came before it. And that's another interesting thing about this section, is that it's not just that the time's ambiguous, the tempo's ambiguous too. Is it sludgy? If it's in 4/4, it's a bit sludgy. If it's in 6/8, it's got drive. And it kind of feels like both of them. The guitars are definitely giving it drive, but the drums are really restrained in this section and weighing the song down a bit. And it's this, I don't know, it's like drinking too much caffeine but can't stop yourself from procrastinating. You're not really going anywhere, but man, you are ready to. It's just, that's just wild. So yeah, tempos, time signatures all over the place. The song structure is unorthodox. Let's talk about that variation. They spent a good minute reinterpreting their intro idea. The first time we get it with some pretty standard drumming, some nice guitar lines. The guitar lines then harmonize. The guitar lines then add rising action to it, where they increase the range of the notes at the end. The drums slowly get more complex. They start throwing in some unusual accents. They start driving a lot of energy. We start seeing some snare rolls where snare hits used to be. They're really cramming a lot of notes in this section, and it's an interesting thing of almost like a sonic layering. Normally, when we talk about layering, we talk about adding complexity through additional lines. You start out with just your strings, and then you add the drums, and then you add the guitar, and then you add some vocals, and then you add a flute, and you're building this section from the ground up and slowly adding more pieces. And this is sort of the same idea, but the instruments don't change, they just change their melodic line. They create variations on it. So the guitars might have done one thing on the first time, and then they added a couple of notes on another, and then added a couple notes on another, and then the drum adds a few notes. And by the end of it, at the end of this minute, this part is highly complex, but the instruments, the voices haven't changed. It's just the notes on the paper that have been added to. Where once there was one note, now there is two. And we have this replication idea. And that is really fascinating. I don't know if this was their first album or if it was just early on in their career, but it's interesting to see such progressive, I don't know if progressive is the right word. We're going to stick with it. Such progressive ideas at the beginning of a band's life, especially in the 2000s, early 2000s, because that means that they were writing this in 2000, 2001, possibly. It was released in May, so I mean, it might have been one of the later tracks, but still, we're talking about early 2000s. We have had progressive music up to this point, of course, through the 70s and 80s and 90s. But it's always interesting to me because in this time, I associate this time with nu metal, which is not always the most experimental genre, especially what it became. That's just my relationship with rock and metal at the time. I was in high school, maybe, and mostly listening to radio stuff. That was my exposure to rock and metal, was whatever the radio stations were playing. Didn't really have strong internet sources to find new stuff out at the time. It was pretty much if the radio played it, it was good, and if the radio didn't play it, well, it was probably some local bands. And yeah, they probably deserved to get heard, but were they as good as the big bands? I mean, I was a kid. That's I'm not, I'm being honest with you. That's probably what I thought at the time. If they were big enough to be on the radio, then I'd have heard of them, and if they weren't, then they probably, they probably had some work to do. Arrogant teenagers and all that. I don't know. I'm being real. I'm not trying to sugarcoat my history. I was probably a bit of an arrogant teenager. Um, but yeah, Mastodon is a band that just would not have shown up on the radio. There's just no way I would have heard about them. Just not very many avenues to learn about new music back then, at least not that I knew of. I mean, the internet was fresh. I'm sure there was somebody on some GeoCities site putting together some of this fringe music. But, anyways, I've kind of gone off topic a bit here. It's interesting that from this era that I associate a sort of experimentation or moving into simpler, heavier music. 90s rock was sort of uh, I don't know, grungy and just kind of straight rock. And the 2000s nu metal movement brought that heaviness from metal into very rock style compositions. So we weren't really seeing a lot of experimentation in song composition too much. It was just about textures and atmosphere and timbres. Really looking at how the songs felt rather than how they were intricately written. Um, like I said, I understand there were proggy bands around this time. I mean, like I said, we had prog rock in the 70s. It'd be ridiculous to think that rock composition stagnated from the 70s until the recent real explosion of prog metal. But the 2000s are just not a time that I really associate with interesting writing. And I love this intro, despite its weight on the composition. It is a perfect example of variation, starting with one idea, ending with a different, and having slow evolution from start to finish. I love it. It's fantastic. Um, and I think those are really the overall ideas that really stuck to me from Mastodon's Mother Puncher. Is their eccentric, put it in a nutshell, the eccentric, eclectic sort of writing style. The song composition is unusually weighted to the intro. The time signature's all over the place. The tempo's all over the place. The transitions are ridiculously harsh. They just go from one idea to the next, bar to bar. They're just butted right up against each other. And all of it creates a song that feels extremely hectic, pulling at its own seams. I mean, like I said, that one section feels like it's rushing and dragging at the same time. What? And a song that just feels like it ends way too abruptly, and I really want to think that that's intentional. That the song feels so short. It's so front heavy that it can't be an unintentional effect. But without knowing the lyrics, because these are some harsh, harsh growls, I don't even know. I don't know how the ideas of the song line up with some of the lyrical themes. But yeah, this is a song that I'm not going to forget about anytime soon. It is just, if it weren't so palatable, because it does feel very metal. There's nothing in here that I think would grate against many metal-oriented fans. If it weren't for that palatability, though, I would almost push this into the avant-garde category rather than metal, just because the composition is so unusual. It really is. I don't know if this is indicative of their style. Maybe this was a one-off on the album and the rest of the stuff they did was more in line with what I would expect from early 2000s metal, just with a little bit more experimentation maybe in the writing. But just the rapid mix of times and tempos and the weird weighting of the song to the front, it does not. It feels like it just chucks a lot of song theory, music theory out the window, and does whatever they want. They said we want 30-second sections, no transitions. Let's do it. Who cares? And it kind of works in one regard. It doesn't feel disjointed despite being completely disjointed. And maybe that's just because the song is torn in so many different ways that the disjointedness sort of feels like structural concepts to the DNA of the track. Like if anything actually felt cohesive, that would be the part that feels odd. But those are just my thoughts on Mastodon's Mother Puncher. I can't wait to get to tomorrow's track, Toe to Toes, and see how Mastodon evolved the sound or possibly went in new directions. And maybe see how they took some of these ideas from their earlier works and extrapolated them into a different sound or into a more polished sound or maybe a more chaotic sound. Just how they took some of these ideas and repurposed them. And also, I am looking forward to see what might be core DNA to Mastodon writing versus what parts of this were just for the song. But this is where you guys come in, though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Let me know if I was on the right track. Maybe I was way off. And let me know what parts of this sort of are Mastodon's stamp of approval. What if this is pure Mastodon? What parts of this song that I picked up on, or maybe parts I didn't pick up on, are just integral to their playing style and writing style? When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. There's a Linktree link in there. Everything is in there. It's a nice little menu. You can find the Discord, the Twitter, the Patreon, special selections, all of it. It's really nifty. Above that, you can like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with Mastodon's next song. Until next time, remember to be critical, but not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.